Hey there, senior leader, and welcome to the Talent Sherpa podcast. This is where senior leaders go to rethink how human capital really works. I'm your host, Jackson Lynch, and today we're going to be diving into one of the toughest but most important boardroom conversations you can have. We're going to talk about performance. But before we get started, let me ask you for a quick favor. If you appreciate this podcast, and I sure hope you do, please take a moment to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with a colleague. That is how the algorithm works, and that's how we get this podcast growing. And if you'd like me to join your team to talk about business-aligned HR, please drop me a line. I'm excited about growing our function. So let's get into it now, shall we? Think about this. The boardroom was quiet. The CEO leaned in and looked at the table, and he asked the question that always lands like a gut punch. Are our people good enough? And every executive had an answer. The CFO pointed to productivity metrics, and the chief operating officer referenced throughput. The strategy talked about market positioning. They were all very rational answers, and none of them actually answered the question. Because here's the truth. That question is not about headcount or turnover or engagement scores or bench strength or any of that. It is about whether the company has a coherent, lived philosophy of performance. And most organizations don't. Now, you might be wondering why outputs are not enough, because companies love outputs. We love to answer the question, did we hit sales quota, or did the factory meet forecast? Did we land the project on time? These are all very useful measures, no doubt. They're also incomplete, because outputs tell you what happened. They don't tell you why it happened or whether it will happen again. And without a performance philosophy, outputs can be gamed. Sales teams can pull deals forward. Ops can cut corners. Leaders can turn teams into burnout factories, just hit a number, and everyone pretends that it's fine until attrition spikes next quarter. And here's where it gets dangerous, because leaders start confusing activity for performance. The report is filed. The meeting is held. The dashboard is green, and everybody claps. But underneath, that system is brittle. That short-term win is not going to be sustainable. And that is why you need a performance philosophy. That's a framework that defines what great looks like, how results should be achieved, and who is accountable for making it happen. And this is where the CHRO comes in, not because they own performance alone, but because performance is a system that cuts across every function. Finance measures it, ops delivers it, strategy points in the right direction, sales starts the process, but human capital fuels it. And the CHRO is the architect of that system. And let me be clear, a performance philosophy doesn't live in a slide deck or on motivational posters. It lives in how leaders set goals, how they coach, how they evaluate results, how they make people decisions, and how we communicate that. It weaves accountability, clarity, and culture into one operating system. And here's the hard test. If your CHRO cannot explain the performance philosophy in 3 sentences, they're not ready for the boardroom, because the board doesn't want jargon. They want confidence that there's a disciplined system delivering enterprise value. So let's talk about what those are. It's the backbone of performance philosophy: outcomes, behaviors, and accountability. So first, add outcomes. Performance starts with outcomes, of course. They must be achieved. What is it? When do we need to achieve them by? Not activity metrics like hours worked or training courses completed, but real impact. We've talked a lot on this podcast about the focus on outcomes. Did sales expand market share? Did engineering deliver a product that customers actually adopted? Did operations improve yield without blowing up safety metrics? Outcomes. They must be precise and tied to enterprise value. And when they're vague, and many of them are, performance conversations collapse into opinion. One leader says, my team worked hard. Another says, your team underdelivered. Both are right in their own frame, but neither is really that helpful. Outcomes anchor us in measurable truth. Second, let's talk about behaviors, because outcomes matter, but how they're achieved matter just as much. If results come through toxic behavior, then culture corrodes and the best talent walks out the door. A strong philosophy spells out the behaviors that matter: collaboration, innovation, discipline, customer focus, whatever is aligned to your individual business strategy. The companies that did this well back in the day was PepsiCo, where we literally balanced results with how we got the results on your individual performance rating. Because if you ignore behaviors, you might end up just elevating brilliant jerks. They shine in the short term, but long term, they rot the culture. BCG research actually shows the companies that enforce cultural behaviors outperform peers by 30% in shareholder return. Now, why is that? I think it's because talent stays and work better together and builds resilience. And you need all three of those things in today's business environment. And then let's talk about the overlooked one. That's leadership accountability. Employees are often held accountable for results. But the question is, are leaders held accountable for creating the conditions for those results? Did they set clear expectations? Did they coach? Did they act decisively when performance lagged? Because I found that too many organizations measure employees and leaders off the hook. That double standard creates fragility. A real philosophy makes leadership accountability pure and explicit. Sustainable performance is as much about what leaders do to enable it as what employees deliver. So you might be asking, why should CEOs care? Simple. CEOs do not need another HR initiative. We have come up with plenty of them over the last 20 years. What they need is confidence that their organization can deliver the outcomes they promise to the board and the shareholders. And without a philosophy, all they get are anecdotes. One leader says the team is strong, another says their team is weak. Another blames turnover. None of it ladders up. With a philosophy, however, the CEO has a lens. Are outcomes delivered to behaviors aligned? And are leaders creating the conditions for performance? That's evidence. It's not opinion. And by the way, boards notice this too. Gartner research shows that boards now expect CHROs to show how talent systems drive enterprise value. A performance philosophy is the tool that does exactly that. So let's put it in practice. Here's the test that I like to give. Ask your CHRO, can you state our company's performance philosophy in 3 sentences? If the answer is vague or buzzword soup, you don't have a philosophy. That's a red flag, as the kids would say. But if you can answer it crisply, then suddenly everyone shares a definition of performance and leaders are going to align. Employees will know what the bar is, and the CEO can finally answer the board's toughest question with confidence. So here's an example of what that might look like. 1, performance of this company is defined by the outcomes that we deliver that advance enterprise value. They're measurable and specific. 2, we measure not only what is achieved, but how it is achieved through behaviors that align with culture and strategy. And 3, leaders are accountable for creating clarity, coaching, and the consequences that enable sustainable performance. That's our performance philosophy. Simple, clear, and transformative when applied. But does everyone have one? No, not really. And so when it's missing, what happens? I think it's chaos. One business unit inflates ratings to avoid conflict. Another deflates to look tough. Some tolerate mediocrity. Others chop too fast. The system becomes inconsistent and fair. And that is not how employees can do their best work. That's not the context where they can thrive. I saw this at a company I advised a while ago. One unit had 80% of employees rated at exceeds expectations, and another had 10%. Both thought that they were right, but neither gave the CEO a true view of talent strength. Incidentally, the performance of both teams was largely the same. So it wasn't until they built a performance philosophy that consistency and credibility in how we talked about it returned. So how do you build it? I think there are only 3 steps. It's really easy. First, define great at scale. Capture it across outcomes, behaviors, and leadership standards. Second, test it with your senior leaders, with your C-suite, and with the board. If it doesn't hold up under that kind of scrutiny, it's not a philosophy, not one that can be used at least. And then third, embed it everywhere. In goals, in reviews, and promotions, and hires, and fires, and rewards. If the systems don't match the philosophy, the employees will see that disconnect a mile away. So companies with a performance philosophy, they end up moving faster because expectations are clear. They retain top talent because effort gets recognized and they build resilience because toxic behaviors don't take root. I once worked with a global company that reframed its philosophy from everyone contributes to everyone creates measurable impact aligned to strategy. Now, it's more words and it was a tiny language shift, but it changed everything. Managers had permission to demand clarity. Employees knew the bar, and promotions finally reflected both results and culture. Historically, it had been just tenure. All right, let's pull all this together. Or as my daughters would say when they think I've gone on too long, Dad, wrap it up. We get it. So here's the summary. Performance without philosophy is chaos. Outcomes, behaviors, and leadership accountability, in my view, are the backbone of performance. The CHRO must define what great looks like at scale. Boards and CEOs should use this 3-sentence rule to test whether that philosophy is real. And when it's done right, performance stops being an opinion and becomes evidence. So the next time your CEO asks, are our people good enough? Make sure that your CHRO has the answer that can fit on one index card and actually mean something. Thank you so much for tuning into the Talent Sherpa podcast. This is where senior leaders come to rethink how human capital really works. A quick shout out to one of our favorite listeners. Hey, Cliff, thank you for being a part of the Talent Sherpa community. And if you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor. Would you hit the like button? We mentioned it before. Leave us a review on your favorite platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're ubiquitous. And if you're a CHRO wondering where to start your AI journey, it starts with defined outcomes and roles. Don't forget to check out Propulsion AI. That's at www.getpropulsion.ai. That's transforming how smart companies turn HR insights into powerful outcomes. And if you're an emerging or brand new CHRO ready to accelerate your impact, come on over to mytalentsherpa.com. We built resources specifically to help you navigate, elevate, and deliver results from day one. And that's it for now. I appreciate you spending some time with me. Until next time, raise the bar, develop a performance philosophy, and keep on climbing.